In January of 1989, 37 years ago, the bodies of two well-known doctors were found in their Larchmont, New York home in Westchester County, and they were lifeless in their own beds. Police would arrive to a scene of truly unspeakable horror as they would do their best to comb through the little evidence that they could find. Now the area, not normally known for these types of incidents, would become clouded with fear and countless theories as the case went cold for several years, leading to nothing but mystery. That's until critical information was given to police, and it would lead to an arrest that would shake Larchmont, New York, unlike anything they've seen since. Please forgive me if I mispronounce a name in today's story. I saw numerous reports where they pronounced names differently, so I stuck to one just to avoid confusion. My condolences go out to the families of Lakshman Rao and Shanta Chervu, husband and wife, who we'll be discussing today. I have to warn that today's story has some details that are particularly graphic, but I'm including them not for shock factor, but just to tell the truth of what was done to these victims. I feel those details should have played a big role in the outcome of today's story. As you guys watch, you'll see exactly what I mean. It can make for a really hard listen, so before jumping in, please do keep that in mind. On today's episode of Evil Intentions, this is Purposeful, the story of Lakshman Rao and Shanta Chervu. Lakshman Rao and Shanta Chervu were husband and wife and resided in the village of Larchmont in Westchester County, New York. The couple were both doctors with impressive backgrounds in their professions. It all started long before they'd made their way to New York, back in their native home of India. Way back in 1951, while back in India, Lakshman, or just Rao as he liked to be called later on, worked in the field of research medicine and began his career training at Andhra University. He would earn a bachelor's and master's degree in nuclear medicine. His hard work and research would take him across the globe. He trained at the International School of Nuclear Science and Engineering at the Argonne National Laboratory in Illinois. After that, he would go on to become a scientific officer at Bhabha Atomic Research Center back in India, where he would remain for a decade from 1958 until 1968. During his time there, he would write upwards of 20 articles in reference to radiochemistry related to medicine. He entered the field with hopes of understanding every angle so he could help people battling cancer, heart complications, and brain disorders, just a few of the problems that he hoped to help with. Years later, after moving to Canada and becoming a research associate at McGill University, Rao made his way to New York, working at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, which by then had merged with Montefiore Medical Center's campus. He would play a vital role in helping build the campus's radioisotope lab, this being where the center's medical and training schools conducted extensive research. Much of Rao's work focused on kidney diseases. According to NYU Health, chronic kidney disease is now said to be the 9th leading cause of death worldwide. His focus was nuclear diagnosis of kidney disease, meaning that he and others used specialized machines and procedures to get images of kidneys in great detail, crucial to early diagnosis and saving lives. Whatever it was that Rao worked on, he put 100% of himself into it, and it showed. Rao, 58 years old, was described as one of the most reliable people you could ever meet, someone with a kind heart who took his work very seriously and stopped at nothing to further his knowledge within his field. He was known as extremely hardworking. He always had others in mind. To him, this job wasn't just a job. It was about helping others however he could. Friends and family said he was a great father to he and Shanta's 2 children, who would later follow in their parents' footsteps, with them both going to medical school. When it came to the fields of radiochemistry and radiopharmacology, Rao was always available to anyone who needed his opinion and/or expertise. It didn't matter if it was a student or a member of the staff. There was never any hesitation from him. He was truly someone who could be counted on, a great person always seen as focused and extremely professional, but also warm, always appreciated by his colleagues and his family. Shanta's history with academics was equally impressive. Her extensive work and research took her all over the world. Shanta, 51, worked in Montreal for a while before making her way to the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York. She was a laboratory technologist in their nuclear medicine department first, becoming supervisor for the hospital at the Einstein Medical Center later on. She gained certifications from the American Society of Clinical Pathology and other respected boards. One of her greatest achievements, however, came in the 1970s, when she gained her certification in physics and instrumentation. She was recognized by the American Board of Science in Nuclear Medicine, something not often seen with a lot of technologists at the time, according to the Journal of Nuclear Medicine. Shanta was extremely driven and spent much of her time participating in different projects related to her field, and all while taking night classes at Iona University for about 2 years. She would earn her MBA in 1979. While Shanta had an endless list of accomplishments and achieved great academic success, she knew no limits and had even more that she wanted to accomplish. In addition to a medical degree she had obtained in Grenada and a clinical fellowship in geriatrics at Montefiore, Shanta had always had a lifelong dream of becoming a physician, working closely with people and being able to help them. It suited her well. Her warm personality made it so she was easy to speak to, and anyone would feel safe under her care. She would start training in internal medicine at Bronx, Lebanon, her first step to seeing this next goal through. Shanta was described as a great mother and wife, known by her friends and colleagues to be kind and gentle. It was said that at work she would become known for her big smile and positive attitude, the type of person who greeted everyone and showed every last person she worked with the same level of respect. She was known to be kind to her patients and always listened to their concerns, making it a point to assure them that they were in the best of hands. And they were. She was genuinely a great person, with a keen desire to help anyone that she could to the best of her ability. By all accounts, there wasn't a day where the Chervus weren't 100% devoted to their work and their family. As the end of 1988 approached, the Chervus had their plates full and had plans of achieving much more the following year. Throughout their relationship, their work often made it very difficult to be together, leading to long periods of time where they wouldn't see each other. But they always made it work, and their relationship only became stronger. But what nobody could have ever seen coming was that the couple wouldn't live to see the new year. On the evening of Friday, December 30th of 1988, Shanta worked a shift at New Rochelle Hospital Medical Center. It was very busy as usual, which kept her at the hospital past 12 midnight into the 31st. She was originally due to be off at 11 p.m. According to reports, she treated over 20 people for everything from back pains to breathing problems. When her shift came to an end, Shanta made sure to walk the halls and offices of the hospital to wish everyone a happy new year, just in case she didn't see them the following day when she would be working her next shift. After that, she made her way home. Normally, colleagues had grown used to seeing Shanta wait in the lobby for Rao to pick her up and drive her home. She always preferred waiting in the lobby instead of out front. Something about standing outside of the emergency room, just waiting, scared her. On this night, she had already discharged her last patient and said goodbye to everyone. Friends and colleagues expected to see her back the next day, but she would never step foot in the hospital again. Rao's day was similar, and just like any other. He put in a regular workday and was on his way home by 5 p.m. as usual. It's unclear if he picked Shanta up like he normally did this night, but the couple did end up home together, likely exhausted from very long days they had. They got into their night clothes and headed to bed. While the night ended just like plenty of others, the next day was a very different story. Shanta never showed up for her next shift, and she hadn't called in sick. She was just a no-show. Immediately, this raised a red flag. It was completely out of character for her. She would never in a million years just not show up to work. And even stranger, family and friends hadn't heard from her when the new year hit. Same goes for Rao. Nobody heard from him. No communication with family, friends, or colleagues after December 30th. Now, loved ones didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something felt way off about all of this. After not hearing from the couple after the new year hit, Shanta's concerned brother decided to go to their home at 36 Lincoln Street and check on them. He had been alerted by their son when he told them that he also hadn't heard from them. They also knew that Shanta hadn't shown up at work, and when they called the home phone, it just rang and rang all day. When Shanta's brother got to the home, he would find their back door partially open. He knew something was wrong right away. He went to police headquarters that Sunday, January 1st, and alerted them to the situation. Authorities arrived at the home along with Shanta's brother a short while later, immediately noticing that a heavy smell of decay filled the air, an odor you would have mistaken for anything else. There was no movement or activity anywhere on the lower level. Authorities advised Shanta's brother to stay downstairs as they searched the home, but he followed closely behind as one officer made his way upstairs. When they reached the doorway to the bedroom, he looked inside and saw what he described as a gruesome warfield. Shockingly, they would find Rao and Shanta Chervu's bodies sprawled out on their bed, lifeless, both wearing pajamas that were covered in blood and with their throats cut. From the looks of it, they had fought for their lives, with wounds covering much of their upper bodies. They appeared to have stab wounds to their hands, arms, necks, faces, stomachs, and torsos. Blood could literally be seen all over the room, from the bed to the floor to the walls, and even the ceiling. All signs of an absolutely savage attack. There were also traces of blood found throughout the home, even if whatever exactly happened looked to take place in the bedroom. The couple also looked to be bludgeoned with some sort of solid object, perhaps the handle to a knife. A weapon or instrument that might have been used, however, couldn't be found in or around the home. The family's suspicions were spot on, but this was just completely unexpected, especially the sheer brutality of it all. The Chervus were always known to be such kind and quiet people who led such productive lives and had no enemies. Nobody had any clue who would ever do this. While loved ones had hoped for new leads or some sort of information regarding the couple's slaying, no information was brought forth. Police had no clue who had committed this crime. By January 2nd, police were investigating the home more thoroughly and taking photos of the crime scene. They found fingerprints inside and a bloody palm print at the back entrance, but those prints didn't lead anywhere. A dead end for authorities. Meanwhile, news of the murder on Lincoln Street left an entire community absolutely floored. Word quickly made its way around the neighborhood, leaving everyone worried that there was a killer on the loose targeting homes in the area. Word also quickly made its way back home to India, where anyone who learned of the slayings expressed great sadness and shock. When it came to Larchmont, residents had experienced robberies in the past, but nothing close to this. In fact, the brutal slaying of the Chervus was the first in about 10 years. The last time someone was killed here was when an officer shot and killed a man attempting to rob a drugstore. Other than that, murders here during that time just didn't happen. But there was still nothing to point police in the right direction. They had no motive, no suspects, no leads, and not even a murder weapon. After 2 or 3 weeks, residents started to feel like maybe the couple was targeted. They still felt safe in their homes, despite what took place. But there was still that lingering feeling that couldn't be shaken. It would be a while before things returned to normal in the area. But for the family, a return to normalcy wouldn't come so easily. On Wednesday, January 4th of 1989, after their bodies were released to their family, a small private ceremony was held for Rao and Shanta Chervu at Cox and Graziano Funeral Home in Mamaroneck. They would then be cremated at the Ferncliff Crematorium in Hartsdale, New York. The grief was as heavy as one would imagine. Loved ones hoped for some form of justice or any type of information leading to an arrest, but there was nothing. Weeks turned into months, and authorities still had no clue who had slain the Chervus. A reward was offered for $22,000, then raised to $25,000 for anyone with any information. An additional $5,000 would be donated by the National Federation of Indian Americans. The community really rallied together. Everyone was looking for answers. Some started to feel that the slayings might be racially motivated at first, one of the many theories circulating. The reward money went unclaimed. Those weeks and months turned into years, with the case now having gone completely cold. And in that time, nobody ever came forward. Then, out of the blue, in 1993, a crucial tip relayed to police would blow the case wide open. On November 11th of 1990, a man walked into Mamaroneck's Harbor Island chapter of Alcoholics Anonymous, looking to overcome an addiction to liquor. He would soon be starting their 12-step program with a sponsor guiding him through. The man's name was Paul Cox, a carpenter brand new to these meetings. a man who had spent some of his childhood in Larchmont. He was an alcoholic who had been struggling with his addiction since his college years, causing him to slack off and not take much serious. He would remain a part of the program from late 1990 until 1993. The fourth and fifth steps of the program involved those enrolled taking accountability for their wrongdoings and admitting to themselves, a confidant, and God exactly what they had done throughout the course of their addictions, believing that anything said within those walls was confidential and would never escape the room. Between 1991 and 1993, Paul would begin to trust members of the group with more personal thoughts. One of those people he confided in was a woman in the group he was thinking of becoming roommates with. He said he felt that she should know about these awful nightmares he often had because they might disturb her or frighten her while under the same roof. But most disturbing was the reason for those nightmares. He told about 7 people in his group, including his potential roommate, that he believed he did something horrible to someone. He spoke of having vivid images in his head of killing people, and even detailed exactly how he did it in some cases. The sickening revelation made most feel very uncomfortable. However, the woman he had told early on about his strange nightmares still moved in with him. Between 1991 and 1993, Paul would tell multiple people that he believed it was he who brutally killed the Chervus. After living together for about 2 months, the woman Paul was roommates with moved out, and on the advice of her psychologist, she went to the police and told them what Paul said to her. After 4 years, the case finally had legs, and authorities had someone in their sights. They immediately moved on the lead, catching up with Paul and arresting him on May 20th of 1993. He was quickly fingerprinted, and to their surprise, his palm print perfectly matched the one found on the doorframe at the back entrance of the Chervu's home. Police also interviewed the 6 or 7 other people who were present when Paul made his sickening confessions. They all said the same thing. He spoke of entering the couple's home and brutally slaying them both as he was blackout drunk. On June 23rd of 1993, surprisingly, Paul was released from a Westchester County jail thanks to a $250,000 bond put up by his parents. He would then be left on house arrest at his parents' home. They knew they had the monster responsible, but still, authorities couldn't understand why. Why would anyone randomly take the lives of a loving couple in their own home? And what they learned was almost as disturbing as the confession itself. On the evening of December 30th of 1988, Paul, who was back home for the holidays, and 2 of his friends went to a party that started to die down by 11 p.m. It was a keg party, and the kegs were already empty, so they decided that they would keep the night going by finding a local bar to have more drinks. They spent a little over 2 hours there drinking kamikazes, leaving the bar at around 2 a.m. Paul and his 2 friends got into the car Paul was driving, his mother's Chevrolet Impala. Despite being extremely intoxicated, he started driving. After a few minutes on the road, Paul lost control of the vehicle, crashing into a protective railing. He sat there, staring off into the distance without anything to say. His friends yelled at him, upset that he had just almost killed them all, although they shouldn't have gotten into the car to begin with. Paul would then exit the vehicle and just walk off, abandoning his mother's wrecked car and the people he was with. All he told them was that he was going to his parents' house. The 2 friends he drove with decided to go back to the bar that they just came from so they could have more drinks, as if they weren't just in a car crash. Meanwhile, as Paul made his way back to his parents' house, he passed right by 36 Lincoln Street, which happened to be his childhood home and where the Chervus now resided. You see, they had bought the home from Paul's parents sometime back in 1974. He lived at 36 Lincoln until he was 7 years old. It wasn't too long, but it seemed he had vivid memories and some sort of strange attachment to the place. Even stranger, it would be learned that Paul had been to the home even before this. Back when he was in the 8th grade, he went to the house and knocked on the door. He asked the person who opened if he could walk to the place he once called home. That person happened to be Dr. Shanta Chervu. She denied his request. The early morning hours of December 31st were nothing like back when he was in the 8th grade. This time, he didn't knock. He approached the home and made his way around to the backside, opening the door to a mudroom and breaking the glass window to access the doorknob from the inside. And just like that, he was inside the house. He remembered the layout of the home and knew exactly where everything was. He had even bragged to people that he could walk through the place blindfolded if he felt like it. According to reports and interviews with those he told about the slaying, once inside, Paul made his way straight to the kitchen and grabbed the kitchen knife. The knife set just happened to be a gift from Shanta's daughter. He then made his way up to the master bedroom where the Chervus were sleeping. He entered and sat at the edge of their bed, knife in hand. After a few moments, Shanta woke up, horrified at the sight of a stranger in her bedroom. Before she could even really react, as she stood up, he punched her in the nose and began to stab her viciously. He stabbed Shanta 9 times, everywhere from her throat to her arms, her lung, her heart, and her stomach, piercing several organs. Her body fell to the bed, landing on Rao's right arm as he was waking up in the middle of all the commotion. He attempted to defend Shanta and waved his free hand around while pleading for his life, trying his best to push the knife away. He would be stabbed a total of 15 times, everywhere from his face to his stomach, his pancreas, his intestines, his kidney, his neck, liver, lung, and hand. He then slit their throats to make sure that he actually took their lives, using so much force that he cut through Rao's voice box. Paul would tell people that during his blackout drunk moment of rage, he had flashbacks of his childhood abuse at the hands of his own parents and thought it was them laying in that bed. It was his mom and dad that he had hoped to kill. After slaughtering the innocent couple, he cleaned himself off and made his way to his parents' house. According to him, he woke up the next morning not knowing what happened. His clothes were covered in blood, and he still had the bloody knife in his possession. He disposed of his blood-soaked clothing in an incinerator and threw the knife into a nearby lake, although he also told one of the people he confessed to that he believed he buried the knife after returning to the house the following morning. He went back to clean up the scene. He also woke up to his mother banging on his door. She wanted to know why her car was found wrecked and abandoned on the road. She had been alerted by the police early in the morning hours after he crashed. He said a tire on the car blew out and he lost control. He acted completely normal, no remorse, and no signs of guilt. That same evening, he attended a New Year's party that his parents were throwing. Little did they know that he had been busy covering his tracks in one of the worst crimes Larchmont had ever seen. And the evidence was gone. Nothing to tie him to the terrible crime that he says he didn't remember committing in the moment, except for those prints that he had left behind. For someone blackout drunk who didn't remember anything, it seems that a great deal of effort went into cleaning up and getting rid of crucial evidence once he sobered up. It made police question if he really had no recollection of the events, or if he was just choosing to disclose what he felt wouldn't make him look as guilty. He stated the first he learned of the Chervu's murder was while watching the news at his parents' house. He saw it was his old address and ran upstairs to tell them. They all watched the news together, shocked at something so horrific happening where they once lived. His parents had no clue they were in the room with the murderer the whole time. After this, Paul joined Alcoholics Anonymous in November of 1990, and according to him, he became sober soon after. But as he went longer and longer without drinking, he began suffering from anxiety and paranoia, having vivid nightmares of killing people. But those weren't nightmares. They were memories, detailed flashbacks. There was no running away from this, and there was absolutely no way to justify it. After his disturbing confessions, and after years of mystery, Rao and Shanta's loved ones had experienced enough. Years of no breaks and no closure. Now, it was time for Paul Cox to finally pay for what he had done. He would be facing multiple counts of murder. By June 1st of 1994, a trial was underway for the murders of Lakshman Rao and Shanta Chervu. Their children, nieces, and nephews were all in attendance. The defense would paint the picture of a man who was fueled by alcohol and had no recollection of the sickening acts he had committed. The family didn't buy it. Neither did the prosecution. The prosecutor called Paul's actions, quote, conscious, purposeful, and goal-directed, feeling strongly that he very much meant to do what he did. They felt that the talks of being blackout drunk were just a way for the defense to try and reduce the severity of his actions. Many felt the same. This was someone who not only carried out a double murder, but did his best to cover it up, leading to years of mystery and suffering for the family. His actions spoke much louder than his words. Experts took to the stand and described the severe injuries inflicted on the couple, and they did so in detail. It would result in loved ones having to exit the courtroom. A doctor from the medical examiner's office sat on the stand for over an hour and a half, going over autopsy reports that told it all. While the defense continued to make it seem like this was just some unfortunate tragedy, a crime committed in a drunken haze, the jury couldn't ignore the obvious, that the Chervus would still be alive if not for his actions. Even so, some jury members felt confused about the entire ordeal, questioning if he really did this on purpose. But the blood was no doubt on his hands. The flunky who didn't know his limits and lived a reckless life, driving drunk with friends and totaling cars while getting off scot-free, not caring whose life he could have taken in the process. Whatever deep-rooted rage and hatred was building up inside of him, he took it out on innocent people. And it all stemmed from this twisted connection to his past. He was 100% responsible for the tragic outcome. There was no way around it. Even with confessions and a good amount of evidence, the trial would somehow end in a mistrial. It would be later that year, on October 31st of 1994, when a retrial began. It was almost exactly like the first. The same evidence, same defense, and same relevant information presented. However, this trial turned out different. On Tuesday, December 6th of 1994, Paul Cox was found guilty on 2 lesser counts of manslaughter for the slaying of Lakshman Rao and Shanta Chervu. It took 8 days of deliberations for a jury to reach a verdict. The jury rejected charges of second-degree murder, but they also rejected an insanity plea by the defense. Family and colleagues expressed great disappointment with that verdict, to say the least. Some even felt that Paul should have just taken his own life instead of dragging the innocent down with him into the darkness. Paul's mother, who had testified on his behalf 2 times throughout the trials, cried as her son's $250,000 bond was revoked. He was then led away in handcuffs to await sentencing behind bars. Rao and Shanta's daughter had the following to say about the verdict. He acted with no conscience and has acted with no remorse whatsoever throughout this trial. He and his family have shown absolutely no remorse at all and have been both an insult to our family as well as the court system. She had every right to feel this way. Her children would never get to know their grandparents, and all because of a drunken mess and sorry excuse for a man. He was the entire reason for this family's suffering, and now came a long 3-month wait for his actual sentencing. On Tuesday, March 14th of 1995, Paul Cox was sentenced to 16.5 to 50 years in prison. Family on both sides attended the sentencing. Many felt he deserved a life sentence and weren't happy with what he was given, but they were looking to finally put this behind him. Rao and Shanta's son would be one of the people to deliver an impact statement. He spoke of the brutality of the crime and how he never even got to kiss his parents goodbye one last time. That's how badly mutilated their bodies were. Others shared similar sentiments, speaking of the huge loss. A few short weeks after sentencing, Paul Cox, now 27, was planning a jailhouse wedding. He married a 20-year-old college student attending Lehigh University who hailed from Rye, New York. They exchanged vows while he was behind bars. A friend of the bride had the following to say about the random ceremony. She loves him. The whole situation is mind-boggling, but if she's happy, I'm supportive. Granted, this may not be the wisest decision of her life, but at least he won't cheat on her. While the long wait for justice was over, while the family finally felt that they could leave Paul and all of this in the past and focus on healing, that sense that justice had been served would be short-lived. On Tuesday, July 31st of 2001, after serving around 7 years, a judge looked into Cox's case again, and he decided that the personal information disclosed by Paul in his AA meetings should have remained confidential and never relayed to the authorities. The manslaughter conviction was overturned. He remained in prison until March of 2015 and has since been released. While the Chervus' lives were brutally and abruptly ended, Paul Cox gets a second chance at life. He's a free man. What took place on Lincoln Street in 1988 is still spoken about today. There are residents who still live in the neighborhood who clearly remember the impact it had on the area. No innocent person just living their life deserves to be brutalized this way. The story would continue to be talked about for years to come, and was even depicted in an episode of Law and Order titled Privileged. Pretty much every last detail about this case is included in this episode. Rao and Shanta's case is directly referenced when one of the officers speaks of an Indian couple who was murdered up in Westchester. Rao and Shanta left behind friends, colleagues, and family who cared for them deeply and never let their memories fade. They'll always be remembered for their incredible work, dedication to their family, and their warmth. Genuine people who just wanted to help anyone they could and put blood, sweat, tears, and many years into their crafts. They made a huge impact not only in the worlds of science and medicine, but in the hearts and minds of those they worked with and cared for. In a matter of an instant, everything came down to that tragic moment where a drunken flunky took his alleged past of abuse and made innocent people pay the ultimate price for it when it had absolutely nothing to do with them. It's a level of loss that many won't understand, something that nobody could have ever seen coming. Shanta always waited in her job's lobby for her loving husband to pick her up and take her home where they felt the safest, only for that to be the very place their lives would be taken. No matter the sentence, no matter whatever excuse could be presented, the blood will forever be on Paul Cox's hands. He will always be the monster who did this. If he ever forgets that, I'm sure those nightmares will be back at some point to remind him. If alive today, Rao would be 95 and Shanta would be 88 years old. Rest in peace, Lakshman Rao and Shanta Chervu, and my deepest condolences go out to their loved ones. You aren't forgotten.
That was Paul Cox in Westchester County Court back in 1994, apologizing for the brutal stabbings of Larchmont doctors Lakshman and Shanta Chervu. 7 years after his manslaughter conviction, he could become a free man because his confession was made to fellow members of Alcoholics Anonymous.